We shall now make a move towards Khan's digital world. This will be hosted here by the digital world maestro, namely Dr. Badrul Khan. The beautiful co-hostess here is Ms. Nicolette Dividar. In a few days, Dr. Khan will be off to God knows where to address his international digital arena, and we really appreciate him filming this segment before his departure.
Welcome to KDW. I'm Badrul Khan
and I'm Nicolette Dividar.
Thanks for joining us today at KDW. He's right, she's right, you're right. Is in the digital world everyone right?
That's a good question. It depends how we define right. But in the big picture of things, in the digital world, all opinions do matter. Why? Because we're all part of a system, except that we need to learn how to think and act like a system. And on that there is room for all of us to grow. Systems thinking is an art that is experiencing a renaissance.
What do you mean?
Well, do you know where digital is coming from? It comes from Latin digitis, and it means finger. Yet a finger alone only makes sense in the context of the whole hand. It's the connection of everything with everything, the underlying relationship of all of its parts, and the collaboration between them that make the finger useful in the context of the whole hand.
The digital world is all about relationship and collaboration. Does that make everyone right?
That's a good question. The digital world certainly accelerates thinking in terms of systems, and we're beginning to see that there is more to what we see than meets the eye. Let me give you an example. The story of the sixth blind man and the elephant. It's been narrated in different cultures many times with different undertones, but the quintessence is deeply relevant to every one of us today, no matter where you live. And why? Because it's about broadening our view and moving above opinions, silos, and boundaries. So in this story, the first man describes an elephant as a pillar, because that's the one who touched his leg. The second one describes the elephant as a rope. That's the one who touched the tail. The third one says it's a snake. That's the one who touched the trunk. A hand fan is what the fourth man called it, who touched the ear. A huge wall says the fifth, who touched the belly. Where a solid pipe says the sixth man, who touched the elephant's tusk. In brief, every one of them was actually right. They all delivered an important insight, only that each of them described the single part that he had experienced. But together, they described the elephant as a whole. And that's what makes a system.
Well, and digitization makes all those different views and aspects transparent.
Yeah, think about this. The internet would blast the 6 different views into the world. And while some would say it's fake news or partial good news or not correct, eventually when people hear all of that in context, they begin to see that the elephant is really made up of all of those views. That's what makes the world much more complex and puts the structures and decision-making processes that we have in place out of date.
Yes, before that, there was a black box. The digital world has turned the black box into a glass box you can see through, meaning every decision that people make in communities, in governments, in companies now affect everything right away. There is no hiding anymore.
No, indeed there isn't. In the last century, we gave our structures in business and organizations, political systems, a rather straightforward touch. Dominated by competition, an eat or being eaten approach, problems were dealt with where and when they appeared, but not at their root. For example, rivers were made straight. Companies focused on shareholder value only. Consumers wanted instant gratification. Economics was handled by economists only, and many doctors treated only by symptoms. In brief, we had everything set up in straight lines from point A to point B without thinking how it may impact other areas. And today we learn that the silo approach, this thinking in straight lines or linear thinking, is damaging, and the digital makes that visible. But when you really reflect on it, where and when in life does something ever go straight? It never does, and neither does in nature. There is a reason why rivers are curvy and why even our spine grows in the shape of an S and not in a straight line. So why would we assume that a line straight from point A to point B or siloed decision making could solve anything in life?
There are many examples of damages that this non-holistic, non-systemic approach can cause. For example, we experience online university. They put big bandwidth, heavy videos on their courses, and many of their students or executives flying from one place to other place, taking this accelerated MBA programs, and then it failed because when they're flying places to places, they need high bandwidth, they need slim, fast modules so that they can go through it and get it done right away. So because they're not thinking holistically, systemically, and that caused the problem.
Yes, and it's the same with the economy-ecology equation. Rivers, for example, where the curves were straightened, flooding has become a major problem. Dams that were built, like the Aswan Dam in Egypt, for example, had damages that outweighed the benefits. Deep water wells that were built lowered the groundwater levels and resulted in increased droughts. While before it wasn't so obvious and one could get away with the symptomatic problem solving, in the digital world we simply can't. The digital breaks down boundaries and makes collaboration across the spectrum a must, because only by integrating all the parts do we understand the whole.
But why system thinking is so hard to do?
We have to retrain ourselves. What's interesting is that we're kind of going back. So in antiquity, science, philosophy, and arts were taught in unison. They represent head, heart, and hands. They're a trinity that encompass all components of a whole system. And a whole systems approach connects opposites and moves above polarity. And today, ironically, digitization forces us to go back again and take a holistic view and go above polarity.
So next time you fight with someone about an opinion, remember that in the digital world, everything only makes sense when you can see everything in a context of the whole.
That's right.
Well, folks, that's all for today. We'll see you next. Thank you very much for joining us.